Thank you. Forgot we needed that. The first thing, Rob, are you willing to take minutes? Since
Yes.
you guys have been
Yes,
super.
right. So I did it last time.
Yeah. And I just want to mention this, but we'll come back to this at the end. I'm not going to be able to attend next Tuesday's meeting. I had to schedule a doctor's appointment that I couldn't really get any other time for, so I apologize for that. So we'll have to talk about if we want to have the meeting anyway with someone else running the meeting, or if we want to reschedule. So just want to give everybody a heads up on that. The first item on the agenda is to approve the November 23rd minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone good with those?
Yeah, thank you for making a table with all the places.
Oh, yeah, thanks for fixing the minutes.
Well, I just thought, let's put it.
Barbara did that, right?
Okay.
I thought, let's just put that in a table. It's easier for me to see it when it's in a table. Okay, so we have a number of items in our discussion section, and the first two are things that I know Samantha wants us to address today, because those are things that council might be taking action on. Is that correct, Samantha?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So I looked through the first thing, the parking ticket, late fees, and court citation coordination. And I looked through the ordinance and John Walco's email and had a couple of questions or comments, but I wanted to see if Bob or Rob had any. But Samantha, is there anything you'd like to say first to set up our discussion?
I guess I'll just say that really the main purpose of this ordinance, and Michelle has had to deal with a lot of this directly as well, so feel free if I miss anything, Michelle, to add on to this, is basically the borough has been unable to enforce its parking tickets, or it's had issues enforcing its parking tickets in court with the way that the parking tickets are currently structured. Most particularly the $5 late fee after 48 hours, as well as some other issues with the way it's written that actually causes issues for the police officers to be able to write tickets. And there's just a lot of, just the way the ordinance currently works just isn't as functional as we'd like it to be. So really the purpose of this ordinance is to make our parking enforcement program something that we can actually enforce.
Yeah. Thank you. Bob, Rob, did you have any thoughts on this? No. Okay. I just had a couple of just wanted to check on a couple of things real quick. I mean, I noticed that John Walker mentions that he's not addressing snow emergency route fees in here because it was, we had a recently enacted ordinance and the fines are in there. He has a paragraph in here though in his email where he says, however, I believe that the same 10-day system could apply to, and it's like something got cut out of his email. I didn't know if he was wanting or suggesting that something be done in this ordinance for snow emergency routes, simply because the paragraph ended that way, or if he was thinking ahead to when we might have another amendment to the snow emergency route ordinance or whatever. So I didn't know, Michelle, that would be a question you'd want to just check back with him on to see if
I can see that his email did get cut off, and I think that what he's trying to say is that all parking violations after 10 days, just to keep everything on the same path, so we don't have to do, remember like this ticket versus this ticket, everything after 10 days, flat fee, no late fees, after 10 days it goes to the court. So I believe that's what he was trying to say.
Yeah, I think so too. What I didn't know is, does he think though there's some action that we need to take in an ordinance to make that happen? Or is it just understood? So that's all. I didn't know if there, if we had the rest of that paragraph, would it say, and the next time you update the snow emergency route ordinance, we'll put the 10-day language in. So I thought that might be a question to go back to John, and I'm happy to send that to him if you'd like me to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good question.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will send a question to John, just to see. He also, he mentioned in a previous email, when we got the first version of this, he mentioned that at some point he would recommend having fines for damage to parking meters. That's not in this ordinance. I'm assuming that's intentional. Did he say anything about that to you?
Samantha, did he mention that to you? I don't believe I.
Not really. My best attempt at channeling the spirit of John Walco would probably be that, because that would be a separate sort of policy discussion that we need to figure out fine amounts and all that for. That probably just for now it was left off of this ordinance just so we could get this ordinance done and actually be able to enforce the system we have before adding anything additional onto it.
That makes sense. I just wanted to double check, so, because I didn't want something to be lost.
But Councilmember Fortner, if you want to, if you want to ask the borough solicitor that question as well, I think that's a very appropriate question to ask him.
Okay. And he also mentioned in here then, the email that I was getting some of my questions from is an email that he sent to Chief Gallagher and Judge Quinn, and he asked them for their feedback. I'm guessing if John gets any that's relevant for us, he'll pass it on to us. I just wanted to make sure that he hadn't passed on any feedback to either you, Michelle.
I didn't see that I was copied on any response from Judge Quinn. Chief Gallagher did have a short response, I believe it was yesterday, just confirming what Solicitor Walco had said.
Okay. So, okay. Super. And then just one last thing. John Walco notes at the end of his email that if this passes, there will need to be revisions to the tickets that are issued. As I believe they still would provide for the increase in penalty. So he's just talking about the actual paper?
Yeah, I think he meant the system.
That's what I thought. Okay. And so I'm assuming somebody's got that.
Yes.
Okay. Super. That's all I noticed when I looked through this. But thank you. I will send 2 questions to John, and I'll copy all of us on it. Okay. Everybody good on that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then Samantha, you're expecting this will be before council Wednesday night to enact, correct?
That is correct.
To consider enacting.
Well, no, to consider advertisement.
That's right. That's right. This guy has to be advertised. Okay. Super. The next thing on the agenda is the parking controller job description. And Samantha, what is it that you'd like the committee to consider around this?
Sure. So again, just a brief bit of background. As the committee is aware, the borough is making a change in its parking and the person responsible for the parking enforcement position. And as part of this, myself and Chief Gallagher thought this was a good opportunity to review the job description prior to hiring someone new, and just making sure that it works for the borough, especially in light of the Nelson Nygaard study and the work that this committee is doing. So the main thing I'm looking for from this committee is just to make sure that me and Chief Gallagher appropriately understand where the borough is trying to go with parking in light of those studies, and just given that we have a parking committee, it seemed to make sense to bring this to you all. There are 2 particular parts of the job description I did want to bring to your attention per the Nelson Nygaard study. In the section for essential functions, Chief Gallagher did add added some bullet points about makes recommendations regarding parking management, may work Saturdays as ordered by the chief of police or his/her designee. And then also under under qualifications, a bullet point was added about serve as an ambassador of goodwill for downtown Narber to the public, da 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 da. And so I just want to make sure there wasn't anything else from the Nelson Nygaard study or any of the stuff we've been talking about that we wanted to see as part of the parking controller's job before hiring another person, based on this job description.
Okay. Bob, Rob, do you have any thoughts on that?
I like the goodwill ambassador. I like that that's explicit, and that that'll be a good thing for the business district. But yeah, I don't know, I can't quite think how this would, if there's any discrepancy between this and our future plans.
Bob?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Samantha, the only thought I had in reading through it was, gee, I'd like it to stress that the interaction with the public is the most important thing of the parking controller. I mean, to me, it's obvious that they need to coordinate with the police officers and the crossing guards and public works staff. And I was like, and the public always comes last in that list. And so, that was just my response in reading through it, was that, gee, I'd almost like the public to be listed first. But I understand where John's coming from too when he drafts this, or whenever. I mean, this is, I'm sure, based on something that's a job description that's been around for a while. And that, I think, has been historically the focus of, yeah, you need to coordinate with the other folks involved in parking enforcement.
And that's just to help you draw that thought out a little more, because I think it's making a really important point. Wish I had thought of it. And I think Rob was pointing to it also, that the parking enforcement officer is probably one of the most visible employees in the borough.
Yeah.
Even more so than the person who sits at the front desk downstairs. And in fact, so that person's more public facing than anyone. And so they need to have all the skills plus of the person who would be sitting at the desk, responding to questions and concerns of people who walk in.
Yeah.
So I think just to really emphasize that skill set, and that it's a public relations job, it's like, it's a customer service job.
It is, yeah.
And so, yeah.
Samantha, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think what you're all saying makes a lot of sense, and I think myself and Chief Gallagher can make a few tweaks in in the summary part of the position to note that it's public facing and represents the borough under the essential functions, to really emphasize the public part of it, and then finally we can take a look at the language in the office manager job description and add any relevant parts of that in terms of dealing with the public.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I hadn't even thought about that when I read this. Thank you. Yeah, I just think this is a golden opportunity to change both the expectations of the person doing this job, but then the expectations of everyone working with that person about what their job is. And then if that happens, then the public's going to have a different just way of being and interacting with this person. So.
And with the office, because any issue that the public would have with that person's going to multiply, because they're going to tell all their friends and coworkers, and also it's going to, all the issues that anybody in the borough has with that person's going to flow uphill to the office.
Yeah.
So it's an enormous time suck then at the administrative level if that person's not handling things perfectly every time.
Yeah. Which of course they're not going to, but you want to minimize the chance that they will have, you want to keep the number of those unhappy interactions as little as possible.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay. And then Samantha, is this job description going to come before council then at some point, or?
Yeah, so Borough Council has to approve all job descriptions. So this one, given our need for someone, probably the way I'll want to do it, given that this committee is comfortable, just as long as I make those changes we talked about, I would like to get, because we've been without a parking controller for almost, a month now. So, I would like to get this job advertised by the end of the year. Um, so maybe at the council work session in January, they can look at the job description before we actually hire someone. But I would like to at least go ahead and get the job advertised, and then council would confirm the hiring, hopefully at their January business meeting of the new parking controller.
Okay. So council would approve it at the January workshop meeting, and then the job description? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And then hopefully the hiring we'd approve at the business meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay.
No.
Sorry, Samantha?
No, I'm all good. Thank you for your feedback.
Oh, you're welcome. So the next item on the agenda was the parking payment technology options. I know, Samantha, you've been in conversation with Park Mobile, and were wanting to give us a little, just let us know what you've learned from them and where we might go from here with that. Is that something you want to do today or at a different meeting?
No, I'd love the opportunity to talk about it today. Yeah, I thought I had a really good conversation with Park Mobile as requested by this committee. And the good news for the borough is, first of all, if the borough were to implement Park Mobile, it wouldn't cost us anything. There are no fees to the borough for the use of Park Mobile. We wouldn't have to, put in new meters or anything like that. All we have to do is just had to put some stickers on the meters with the information about Park Mobile that I'm sure many of you have probably seen in other places, and Park Mobile would provide us with the stickers. So no, I mean I think it can work out really great for the borough in terms of one of the recommendations from the prior parking studies was to give people alternate ways to pay the parking meters, and I think that I think Park Mobile could allow us to offer that option to the public without any cost to the borough. The cost to the public would be 25 cents per transaction, but I mean I think that's I don't know. I mean personally, again, I've used Park Mobile all over the place. And to me, that feels like a pretty nominal cost for the convenience of paying a parking meter with, with a credit card and getting cell phone notifications about when the meter's going to run out.
That's invaluable. Yes, get one parking ticket and you're like, oh. Okay, 25 cents.
I did speak with them as well about like whether they'd be able to assist with anything regarding like the 2-hour zones or guest passes or anything like that, and talking through how we thought we want that to work in the borough. Park Mobile didn't really think they would be the right solution for that issue. It sounds like working with the existing system we have right now for like the guest permits and the parking tickets is probably the way to go with that. But for again solving this issue of allowing people to pay the meters with a credit card, Park Mobile would be a great way to do that.
I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, thank you for that information, Samantha, Manager Ryan. I'm a little disappointed that they're not going to be the solution for the borough-wide, that there's just not technically the right fit for that. And it would be really great if we could continue to look for a good fit. Obviously, maybe to improve on the current system.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry to cut you off there, Councilmember Weisbord. I did want to emphasize that, yeah, I do think there's still going to be opportunities to use technology, as we talked about at a prior meeting, to address those issues. I just don't think it'll be Park Mobile, but I also don't want you to think that we're giving up on that. Like I said, I do think the existing technology we have for the parking tickets and the guest passes could be a solution to those issues you've raised.
oh, great. Well, sort of with that part said, is Park Mobile, do you think that their technology is going to be in a good position to help us with the public-private parking lots and creating specific zones, say, for each of the unique parking lots that, that we might have an opportunity to have an arrangement with the owners?
Sure, so that's a little bit of a separate conversation, but to just answer that question, yeah, they could, because the way Park Mobile works is they have what's called zones, and each zone can have its own, its own time limit and time per, time to pay to use in that zone. So, so yeah, as for that, that could help out with that if we can get that going. But of course, that's something we can talk more in detail about a little bit further in the agenda.
Further on in the agenda, okay. Oh, that's are we going to have that discussion later? Oh, I see.
If we get to it today.
Okay, okay, well, I'll be quiet. But I guess one more question about Park Mobile then. Does Park Mobile give recommendations about how to zone one's municipality? Or do they basically survey us and say, how would you like us to zone this, based on the parameters of the parking, the parking time?
Yeah, I asked about that. Basically, the way they work is they pretty much rely on us to tell them what the zone should be and what the what the prices in each zone should be.
They do that, or we tell them?
We tell them.
Okay, gotcha. So we get to price our own parking, which is, I guess that should be an agenda item for future, is how do we establish the correct value for different various zones?
Well, for the metered parking.
Well, for the commercial parking, yeah.
Yeah, however you want to, whatever term we want to use to describe that.
For the Park Mobile areas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for wherever it is. Would be. Yeah, I guess it's true. Some of the spaces won't have meters when we get to this point. It's going to include some spaces that right now are in that commercial area but don't have a meter at them.
You could easily extend commercial parking into areas that,
Right, and that's when I start compiling a list of questions for commercial parking, that'll be one.
Yeah.
It's where is commercial parking, right? Yeah.
I think one of the other neat things about Park Mobile is, to the point of what should the meter costs be. The thing about Park Mobile is we can, set and change the costs as we need to. However, with the meters themselves, through research that Michelle and I have done, unfortunately, the meters as they are the price on that can't be changed without actually changing out the meters themselves.
Okay. I had a horrible feeling that was going to be the answer.
it's like a gumball machine.
Yeah.
And going back to our current system, so everything that this committee has suggested that we do, even paying online similar to how Park Mobile works, we can use the current system to do. So I had a long conversation with them a few weeks ago, and he said, you're already set up with the temporary guest permits. There's just no fee involved. But once you're ready to create new types of permits and have that fee, since we're already set up, it's very easy.
Michelle, what's the name of that technology?
It's UP Safety we use, and it's a
UP.
T2 system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, so we already have the technology, it's
Mhm.
just about designing it how you want it.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So you said that technology allows us to charge for the guest passes.
Mhm.
And then residential permits if we activate that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm. And that's something you can do on your mobile phone, on the computer. If you go onto our parking portal that's on our website now, you'll see the guest permits come up. When we have all those different types of permits in the system, you'll get to choose from a list.
Yeah. Cool. So Samantha, you answered a big question that I had after Bob and I had a chat, which was how does Park Mobile make money if there's no fees to the borough? So it's really just through the fee per transaction, it sounds like. And it almost sounds like, and I'm guessing this is probably true, they really don't have a lot of cost themselves once they've built their system. So
Right.
it's not like they have to then say, okay, we won't work with you unless you have this amount of parking transactions per month or whatever. They don't, it sounds like they're not looking at metrics that way. They're just saying, hey, join our big family. However much your people, however much revenue you generate for us, great. Do you think
That's correct, yeah, because I absolutely asked them if there was like a minimum number of meters or transactions or something like that they needed, and they told me no, that wasn't the case. And especially given that Lower Marion Township uses Park Mobile on their meters. They are, I mean, Park Mobile is all over the country, and they already kind of have that scale that they need to be, profitable. And I think that's good for the residents too, because if they use, Park Mobile in Narberth, they can use Park Mobile in, they can use it in Philly, they can use it in Lower Marion Township, they can use it all over the place.
So Barbara, I just want to make a comment as a placeholder.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you would put this question
Sure.
into our list of questions.
You might want to speak towards the owl.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you can't hear me, Samantha. I just wanted to speak this question out loud while I was thinking of it, so we would have it to discuss later. And I'm just thinking out loud here, so no need to critique this thought now. But let's say we do want to provide some specific areas in the borough for, say, shop owners and their workforce, right? It seems to me like there's maybe an opportunity to use Park Mobile zones with parameters set for, say, longer stays at some lower, like maybe even a nominal cost, low cost, that would create, we could create zones that the shopkeepers and workforce would know were for them. Say like in areas along Windsor Avenue where there's currently no regulations at all, or maybe even some of the side streets where there's no regulations, they could park their cars there, log into Park Mobile for some price, and then and actually, or even in 2-hour zones they could do it. I guess it would have to be set up by ordinance. But the idea would be to create some special places in the borough where those people would park, so they're no longer feeding the meter, or in this instance, feeding the Park Mobile. Which I guess actually advantage of Park Mobile too is you can't feed Park Mobile once you've overstayed your
Right.
the regulations. You can feed a meter, but you can't do that to Park Mobile.
That is correct.
I don't think so.
Well, also vice versa. I will admit, from the municipal standpoint, the other thing that sometimes happens with parking meters, and trust me, I've done this plenty too, is, if someone puts more time on the meter than they really needed, and you see them and someone leaves, I've certainly tried to scout out before, not just in Narberth, but other places. Oh, hey, someone's paid this meter already. I'll park here and don't have to pay. Obviously, Park Mobile, that doesn't happen either. Everyone's paying whenever they use the parking spot. I would, Vice President Weisbord, I would maybe challenge on a policy level the idea. I know this policy is above my pay grade, but just for the committee's thought, Park Mobile, yes, could probably do that idea, but I would question whether we want business employees to have some sort of separate parking system or not. But that's, I guess, more for the committee to figure out. But I guess the short answer, Park Mobile could do things like that if we thought it was a good idea to do things like that.
Yeah, no, I see the problem with it. I guess I was just really thinking out loud. I didn't want to critique the thought now because maybe it's just zones that have longer term parking than 2 hours. It was that idea that actually were commercial, that were paid for, even if they were very low rates. I mean, like, for example, we used to have these meters, I don't even know if they exist anymore, on Windsor Avenue that were like 5-hour, 8-hour meters for.
Oh yeah, they're still there.
And I think that was the intention, of those meters was that to give the people who worked in town to place the park. Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Speaking from personal experience, when I lived in Doylestown, there were certain Doylestown had both 2-hour and 10-hour meters, and Park Mobile had separate zones for those, as well as Doylestown Borough has municipal-owned parking lots where there are meters in those lots that have different hours and rates, and again, those were separate Park Mobile zones. So, yeah, it could certainly handle all that.
Cool. Well, Bob, I will add that thought to, and as I said, I've been thinking about how I need to start, because I've got questions around residential permit parking that have come up from our meetings that I've added to my list of questions as we work through. I haven't started a commercial parking one yet, but I do have a couple jotted down, so I'll add that to the list.
Two things, Councilmember Fortner. Maybe before we move off this item, I just want to make sure, is the committee fine with me getting an actual, for real proposal from Park Mobile for us to review at a future meeting?
Mhm.
Yeah, you're getting nodding heads from everyone here. Yeah, I think that would be fine.
All right, and then one other item. May I take just 2 minutes and show the committee? I think we may have done this before, but just since it just came up again, show the committee our existing parking technology and how it works and what it does.
Sure.
Okay.
Can't hurt for us to see that.
All right. So, Michelle, as a heads up, I'm gonna share my screen. All right. So, can everyone see the Narberth Borough Citizen Connect page on the TV screen?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So this is the system we currently have. I give Missy and Michelle some credit for putting an actual picture of Narberth on it, because until 2 weeks ago, it just was some generic picture on there. And the way the system works, as you see here, it has search tickets on the left and view permits on the right. Search tickets on the left is pretty straightforward. Whenever someone gets a parking ticket, they can go into the system here and pay their parking ticket online, as opposed to having to come into the office to do it. And then the more interesting, don't get me wrong, that's really good we have that, but the more interesting part, especially as we talk about residential parking permits and how technology can help, is this view permits section. So as you see right now, we only have it set up for for visitors in the 2-hour zones, and people can do a day, a month, or a week. And as you see right now, it's they're all free. So as Michelle mentioned earlier, we did get confirmation that if we wanted to add fees onto guest passes, we could certainly do that. If we wanted to create some sort of system in here to charge for other types of parking permits, people could certainly do that as well. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that this existed and how it worked. And actually, if you'll humor me on one last thing, just I know Doylestown the best because I lived there for 5 years. I'll just show you, Doylestown uses the exact same technology, And I'll just show you real quick what their version of the system looks like, because it does include various paid parking permits.
I have a question about the Narberth one when you're done. If you can come
Sure.
back. Thanks.
Absolutely. Alright, so as you can see, it's literally the same system. There's a picture of Doylestown instead of a picture of Narberth. And
You know, if you're in the right community.
yeah, I mean, you might be forgiven for thinking this is a picture somewhere in Narberth. Part of what I love working here and living around here, as opposed, it reminds me a lot of Doylestown. But anyway, so when you click on View Permits, you see here they have various free ones, but then they also have these, paid ones for their 10-hour meters. So this system can accommodate both, all sorts of different types of permits that are free or paid.
Well, there's a 6-month permit.
Yeah, they have, the way Doylestown does it is there are parking meters that have this, like, yellow tape on them, and those are ones that if you have this 10-hour meter permit, you can park at without having to pay the meter. And I'll admit, as someone who lived in an apartment in Doylestown, that's how I handled parking. Was I got one of these 6-month, 10-hour meter permits, and then would just park at. It was like 2 or 3 blocks away from where I lived, but that's the price you pay. When you live in an apartment without dedicated parking. But it's still much better than having to, pay a meter. So
That dovetails perfectly to the question I wanted to ask about the Narberth system, which actually you can keep it on the, okay.
okay.
And that is exactly the thought I was having while we were looking at Narberth, was whether or not it would make sense for us to have an option, say for people who currently live, actually I want to know if this will work. Let's say you don't live on a 2-hour zone currently. Would you be entitled to get a visitor's permit for a 2-hour zone? Let's say you live across the street from a 2-hour zone, you want to park on the other side of the street. Could you log on, push through our system and get a visitor's permit with your address? Or would you have to be at one of the addresses on the 2-hour, like within the 2-hour zone?
Michelle, I'll let you handle that one, please.
Technically, yes, anyone can apply. We've had people apply for guest passes on like Station Circle, and metered parking. Anyone can apply. It's not being monitored and vetted that way of having verification. So anyone could technically apply for one, but I think the thought is if we get a system good enough that we do have verification, then we can kind of monitor that better.
Yeah, and when they're getting a visitor's permit on Station Circle, is that a game or is that specifically legitimate?
Some people think that the parking permits, will allow them to park in metered spaces when, what they call the office, it's only for 2-hour parking, so you're still getting a violation. People try it. Yeah.
So they are trying to game it, but they're not successful because they're at a meter. I see, but they could go, but you could, let's say that you're going to do you're going to be here all day and you want to park in a 2-hour street. At this point in time, anyway, you could push through and get a visitor's permit for free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that points to just another detail that we'll have to look at when we are at a place to say, hey, we're making what we're imagining are going to be the changes that affect the entire borough.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be just a limitation of the current system. And so if our first step is to just go to new technology and new pricing structure where we have current 2-hour zones, we're probably not going to be, who knows, we might address this issue at that point. But it also might be something we can't really address until we move forward. I don't know, we'll have to.
And it sounds to me like you have, as in the office, Michelle, you have plenty of data about what people are doing. Like if it becomes a major problem or something, you'll know. Like if people are abusing that visitor system or something.
Well, and it's hard to know because without verification, you can't tell if it's a resident, if they have their address 100 Conway. We know 100 Conway is not, but we don't know if the 101 Conway, if that is a visitor, a legitimate visitor, if that is the owner, we don't have that information because we don't require that verification.
Right. Whereas like if there were a nominal fee, let's say it's $1 or 50 cents or something, then they would have to put in credit card information so that it would verify their identity.
Not necessarily, because the credit card information only asks for your zip code.
Yeah.
So you can put in whatever address you want that you're staying at.
But they do put in a license plate number, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'd have to run all the license plates.
You know that, yeah.
And then if it's a visitor, like I said, they may be out of town. We don't know if the resident is applying for them.
Mhm.
So it becomes very tricky.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay.
So this webpage that Samantha was showing us, that's the UP safety
Mm-hmm.
technology,
Yes.
and that is also the technology of the handheld
Yes.
meter.
Mm-hmm. So they're all connected. So right now the guest permits go by license plate number. So we can expand that and make everything license plate number so that the device can read all permits, and then they'll know, the parking controller will know what they're registered under.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows who hasn't used Park Mobile before, Park Mobile is also license plate based.
Okay. So when this is just because I've never used Park Mobile. Do you enter your license plate number every time, or do you set up your own account in Park Mobile, and so then when you're using it after that first set of time, you're just entering in the zone you're parking in?
Yeah, it's the latter. Yeah, you create it's very easy to do. You create an account that basically has like, this is my vehicle's license plate number, make and model, this is my credit card information, and then wherever you're at, you put in the zone number and how long you want to park, and it takes care of the rest.
Okay, that's what I was imagining as I started asking the question, but I thought, let me just check. Okay.
So the parking enforcement person would carry kind of two devices, like the UP safety reader and then the Park Mobile.
I'm assuming, Samantha, is that correct, that there's a separate Park Mobile device?
Actually, no. I will ask Park Mobile about that to be sure, or I'll ask if it's somehow compatible with what with whatever we already have, because like you may have saw when we were going to that Doylestown page, like, I mean, they have Park Mobile and UP safety. So I'll ask Park Mobile about how that would work.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't even thought about that, but like, how will the parking enforcement officer know that this person who's at a meter has now exceeded their 2-hour limit and they need to ticket them? That's a good question.
Yeah, and I would be interested, yeah, maybe Park Mobile has some sort of way of like, maybe there's some, I don't know for sure now, I'm just spitballing, maybe there's some sort of admin kind of thing or something where the parking enforcement officer would get a notification from Park Mobile when someone's time expires or something.
They get pinged.
That makes sense.
Oh, well, that's an added benefit.
Yeah, go to this.
Well, I'll make sure of that. I don't know that for sure, but I will try and it would make sense to have a feature like that.
Yeah, that would be nifty. Okay.
Maybe just on your phone.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah, just.
I see.
Actually, I think the device we have right now for the parking permits, for the ticketing, is a cell phone with an attachment. I believe that's how it works.
Wow.
So maybe, yeah, I'm sure that.
Yeah. This can't be the first time they've figured this out, so somebody knows. Okay. Bob, do you have anything?
Thank you.
Michelle or Manager Brian, anything else on this? Are we good? with
Yeah,
the
I'm
parking.
good.
Thank you, Manager Bryant. That was really, I'm glad to see those websites. That really helps me then to understand what we're doing. The next item on the agenda is municipal lot parking. Manager Bryant, do you want to address that today, or?
Sure, that'll be great. And again, I'm glad to have a chance to talk about it with you all because it's been an issue that's obviously near and dear to my heart. Um, so there are two parking lots that the borough directly owns and maintains and controls. That, of course, being the lot at 100 Conway that serves as parking for 80 Windsor, the library, the borough office, and for the basketball courts in the park, as well as the parking lot over at 201 Sabine, which is used for the park there, as well as the tenants and people going to do business over at the businesses at 201 Sabine. The problem with both lots, and I think I have a different solution in mind for each. The problem with both lots is there are multiple vehicles that have people just leave vehicles in those parking lots and then they just kind of live there. Not the people, but the vehicles just kind of like live there for for years on end. And I don't think that's fair to the public because with parking being a resource in the borough, and especially in 100 Conway, with the amount of people coming to visit and the size of the parking lot there, coming to visit the park or the library or the borough office, that's really a premium parking area, and so I think it's the problem that needs to be solved first of all. And then second of all, if the committee agreed with that and we wanted to solve the problem, my proposed solution would be that at 100 Conway, we would just ban overnight parking unless otherwise allowed by the borough. Like if someone like lived at one of the houses right there on Conway by the borough and like had someone coming to visit or whatever, I don't think I would totally mind them having someone park every once in a while in that lot, especially at night because overnight it doesn't get a ton of use. But I think in general an overnight parking ban would be the simplest way to prevent people from just leaving vehicles for days or weeks or months on end the in the parking lot at 100 Conway. And then for the parking lot at 201 Sabine, I would actually propose some sort of permit system for overnight parking there or long-term parking there, just given that that parking lot doesn't have the amount of stress on it that the parking lot at 100 Conway does.
Okay. Bob, Rod, any thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds good. So are we going to talk about the other lots that, behind Mapes?
I don't know, Manager Bryant, do you consider the lot behind Mapes as a municipal lot the same way as these two, or do you think of that as something different?
I think of that as something different because that does have parking meters at it and already has some kind of parking enforcement, whereas the municipal lots have zero rules or enforcement.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. So I totally agree with this. When I was on Borough Council the first time, one of the things I did as chair of the property committee was get the police to look into a pickup truck at 201 Sabine that had weeds growing in the bed of the pickup truck. I don't know how long they did there, but long enough to grow vegetation. And they found the owner and made them move it. So I think it is really important to not have those lots turned into kind of a long-term dumping location for vehicles. People don't know what to do with.
Just like boats and sheds and trailers.
Say that again, Bob?
There's like boats and sheds and trailers and stuff out there.
A shed?
Yeah.
Is the shed though something for the garden? The garden?
It's not their shed, it's a different shed.
A shed on the ground.
I think so.
Wow. And that doesn't belong to the borough. Well, that's something for, I guess, Public Works to look into and see, is that theirs or the borough's, or, I don't know. I can't comment on that one. Manager Brian, do you know anything about that, or is that just like?
I'd have to check with our public works director on that. I don't think that's their shed though.
Okay, well, if it's, that would be good to find out what that is. Who knows, maybe it was some long ago tenant of 201 Sabine and it's just never been removed. But yeah, certainly if there's a boat up there or something, that's, no. Unless we allow that as an overnight parking with a permit. So,
I mean, the thing is, like, for something like a boat, you know, if you want storage for a boat, you'd have to go pay like a private storage place, like $60 to $120 to park in there, you know, vehicles too. So we could allow that kind of use, but we should charge what it costs, because that space could be used by skateboarders or bicyclists, or gardeners,
Yeah.
for example.
right.
It's taking from the residents.
Yes.
Agreed.
So could maybe, we could just stick with 201 Sabine then for a minute, because that's a place where we're saying we would allow overnight parking with a permit. So then I think the question is, what kind of vehicles do we allow to get a permit to be parked overnight? And, you know, I think the first one is just, you know, a regular car. And so then we'd have to decide what we wanted the cost for that to be. But then you might have, I don't know, do we want to do a different structure for a truck? And how do we define a truck, which gets, you know, I always find that gets tricky. But then like a boat or a camper, I mean, those are other things that we've seen people park at trailer.
So a little history, like,
Yeah.
we used to allow people to park anything in the borough on the street. And then, I guess the council in maybe 2015 or 16 or 17, somewhere in there, we created an ordinance that didn't allow on-street parking of oversized vehicles, and we did define the parameters for that, and it's in the ordinance.
Okay.
And that's why Sabine Avenue was opened up as an option for those people. And because there were, you know, historically there have always been people who have work trucks and in the borough, fewer now than like when I was a kid, and there were tons. But it did kind of piss off some people who had oversized vehicles that they used for their work. So they moved them up to Sabine Avenue, and that kind of opened that. That's how that use was opened up. They used to actually keep them down in a lot here. Maybe they still do.
Yeah, well, could be.
So anyway, so
maybe-
there is a definition for an oversized vehicle,
Yeah.
and you know, yeah.
So should we maybe tie that definition use that same definition for, you know, here's a permit for a non-oversized vehicle, that's what this one costs, and here's what an oversized vehicle costs. Should we just have those two classes maybe?
What about a car?
For 201 Sabine, well, so the non-oversized is a car.
Right, okay.
Mr. Brandt, what do you think of that? Or did you-
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess I'll admit I'm a little confused by the discussion in that I'm trying to get how I want to put this. Like, I guess in terms of the borough, I mean, what's the difference to us? Whether someone, I mean, if someone is just using one, I think we charge by the parking space. If someone's using one parking space, whether it's a car or a truck or a boat or whatever, as long as it fits in one parking space, I guess I don't see why that would be a different fee or not, because it's not costing the borough anything. We're not changing the amount of resource that the public is being denied.
I apologize, because I think I made that confusing statement. I guess the thought behind the thought there was that like, well, why should people be parking cars overnight in those lots at all, like regardless? But well, you know, we did provide an accommodation for people with oversized vehicles, so maybe we could allow oversized vehicle parking there overnight, but not cars. That's kind of what
Okay.
I thought.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and Bob, I think you're suggesting that if someone's vehicle is essential to their work and it's not permitted to park on the street,
Right,
then
where are they
they could
gonna
make
go?
an allowance for that.
That's it. It's like residents who own these oversized vehicles have no other option. That was an accommodation for them. It wasn't intended as an accommodation for somebody with a boat or a shed or a playground piece of playground equipment or whatever, you know, or their own personal car. It wasn't. That wasn't the point. I mean, unless they had to move for a snow emergency, right? But really, that notion that we've talked about in the past of not allowing overnight parking in the municipal lots, it's like something we should look at. Maybe this is like a whole other thing we need to address a little further down the road.
Maybe. I don't know. Or, I don't know. What's making you say that?
Oh, I don't.
Okay. So,
Fine.
because, yeah, oh, you're right, it is 9 o'clock. I got so interested in this conversation that I noticed, I didn't see the time. Manager Bryant, we could continue to talk about this for just a little bit, or we could pick this up at our next meeting. What's your preference?
I think I'm fine if we pick this up at our next meeting.
Okay. So, because I'd like to think about this question of what do we allow as overnight parking at 201 State Line? I mean, maybe we only want it to be people who have an oversized vehicle that they can't park on the street.
Yeah, who are residents?
Who are residents, yeah. I mean, maybe that's all we want to use it for. And then as you pointed out, Bob, the snow emergency times, I mean, we certainly want to keep that in mind, for both lots, actually, because they're both used for that. Okay, so, just before we talk about when our next meeting is going to be, since I can't be at next week's, I just wanted to mention a couple of things real quick. So this is this document that I've been using, helping us as we work through things, where we've got some questions that we've raised and we get answers, working through and the result. So we've got an answer to the question, can the existing parking meters be adjusted? And the answer is no. So whatever they are is what they are. And so if we want to do something different down the road, we'll need new equipment if we're for people putting coins into the meters. We had talked at our last meeting about the 2-hour zones, and that, you know, there's, and then that we wondered where the list was that you, Michelle, had compiled, where it came from, and I looked at it then later after I got the answer, and I said, gee, I don't think it lines up with what's in E-code, and it doesn't. You gave us a side-by-side comparison. So the columns where you say public works data, is that like from GIS?
No, so we ended up not using the GIS data because it's been a few years to get the most current information on signage. We had Public Works actually go out and collect where all of the signs for 2-hour parking are.
Oh,
so those are current signage.
Oh, thank you to Public Works.
Yes, yeah. Much thanks to them.
So that was an on-street inventory. All right, so I guess the question then is going to be, do we need to do something to make the ordinance line up with where the signs are? And I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't know, Manager Bryant, what you...
Yeah, I think what'll need to happen is once we actually know what we want the parking regulations to be, then we absolutely should do an ordinance and have the signage match the ordinance.
Okay. So we'll address that part a little bit later. Okay, and then I just wanted to point out that so it gets into the minutes, but that in our last meeting there was some information in the packet about the impact on trip generation when you had a change in development of properties in the boroughs, and that Bob had looked at that and come up with some data using a calculator provided by, I forget the name of it now, but an organization that does that. And Manager Bryant had the traffic engineer look at it, and they said, yes, that is how things look, that the traffic that's going to be, or the trips that are going to be generated by the new developments is not more than what was there before. So the change in use is not adding to trip generators. Did I get that correct, Bob and Samantha Bryant?
Yeah, in fact, it's less intensive. And that's what, when people talk about downzoning, that's what they're talking about, going from a more intensive use to a less intensive use. So a movie theater is an intensive use, a storefront's a less intensive use, an office building's an intensive use, a residential parking, a residential building is a less intensive use. And that's what it means, just fewer people coming and going from that place. And that's all that it shows.
Yeah. Super. Thank you. Thank you for doing that analysis. That was helpful. Okay, so I can't attend the meeting that we have scheduled for next Tuesday, at least not at 8 in the morning. I can attend at a different time. Do we want to reschedule, or Manager Brian, I know you're not able to attend on the 21st, but so I don't know if we want to reschedule then.
I would probably honestly want to deter the committee from rescheduling because the borough would have to pay for legal advertisement, and also the paper that we use, it's like they only do ads on legal ads on Sundays, and we have to get them in like a few days before that. So honestly, to get a legal ad in between now and let's see here. I think we said January 4th would be, yeah, between now and January 4th would be pretty difficult, plus the borough would have to pay a fee for it. So I would encourage the committee to either, I would encourage the committee actually probably just to cancel that meeting and just to meet on January 4th.
Okay. And that's certainly an option. I forgot to say that, so yes. Okay, you guys okay with that?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, Rob is now being assaulted by the sun. The question is, are you okay canceling next Tuesday?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we're going to cancel, and then so we'll meet again on January 4th. Again,
I will be joining you by Zoom on the
Okay.
4th.
Okay,
I will not be here physically,
all right.
but I'll be with you.
January 4th, okay.
Yeah. And then we also have a meeting scheduled on the 25th of January. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, the 25th. I'll have to see.
Okay,
Is that advertised already?
yeah.
Okay.
I believe, right, correct, Samantha, Manager Bryant, I'm sorry, I can't get used to this structure.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, technically you're my boss, so if you want to call me Samantha, that's fine.
I'm calling everybody by the first names because that's just what I do. I forget.
Michelle and Missy handled legal ads. Michelle, do you know if Missy, when she did the legal ad for parking committee meeting, I know we did this meeting the 21st and the 4th. Do you know if the 25th was also included, or if we were just going to do that as part of like the big annual meeting ad?
I know she did the 4th and the 25th of January. I don't believe she did the 5th, so we can do that with the large advertisement.
I'm sorry, say that again, Michelle?
The 5th has not been advertised yet, so we can do that with our big boards and commission, the council meeting advertisement.
We were talking about the 25th.
Oh, the 25th is, yes.
25th has been advertised.
That's correct.
I don't know the date of the 5th, I don't know what that is. 'Cause-
I got confused. So
Okay.
the 4th and the 25th of January were advertised.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Now that being said, because the borough does have to pay to do its big like annual meeting ad in January, if you did want to reschedule the meeting on the 25th, that you could definitely do.
okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I just have a child care
yeah,
challenge
understood.
starting that week.
Okay. Manager Bryant, what's the deadline for us getting a new date set?
I would defer to Michelle on that, but I would say by the end of the year.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, as soon as
So-
possible is better, it's just so we have the information.
Right, okay, so can we do that by email? I'll send it.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Actually, Rob, if you want to start it and send an email and say, here's what works for me at 8 in the morning. If that's what, do we want to stay with this time? I think that works for us all. If you want to send an email around and let us know.
okay, I don't think I can do the 8 o'clock time.
Oh, On any
but
day.
starting that week,
oh,
on any other time.
well, but could we don't have to be in that week, we could be in the week before.
Oh, okay, the week before I could definitely do. Yeah, because this is when the semester starts, so the week before I can meet at 8.
Okay.
But just so I understand, Councilmember McGreevy, are you saying that just for that week you're going to have an issue? Or are you saying for all of 2022, starting with that week, you're going to have an issue?
Definitely starting that week through all of February until I have like help with childcare and getting my.
So I guess.
That's a question. Do we need to come up with a different time that we have these?
I mean, I could do 9 o'clock, but I couldn't do 8 o'clock because I have to get my son to school by 9.
Gotcha. Well, so now I'm sort of like wondering, is this, because Bob, I think you need to leave, 'cause you look like you need to go, so he's getting all bundled up. So should we do this by
Yeah, we can
email?
sort it out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, actually, we could let Bob go and maybe the.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
and
and I don't have my calendar with me either, so
Yeah.
in terms of settling on dates, we have to do it by email.
Okay, all right, we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, well, so the formal meeting is adjourned.
Okay.